Now, next up here on Startup Daily TV, Render is a construction tech startup founded by former NBN Co execs. It's focused on improving the rollout speed of telecommunications networks. The venture is as focused on the US as it is to Australia. CEO Sam Pratt is on Skype now to talk about an issue dear to the hearts of everyone in the tech sector, the digital divide. Hi Sam, welcome to Startup Daily.
An absolute pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
All right, I've got my fingers crossed on this conversation, mate, that we won't get any buffering. Render's now got its biggest market in the US. So can you take us through the differences you see between here and there when it comes to internet infrastructure?
Well, for everything that the NBN is, the US does not have one. The US is effectively a patchwork of connectivity, where places that we think about, California and New York, Silicon Valley, they've got fantastic internet infrastructure, but literally you get 30 or 40 miles out of those cities and people are not connected. So the main difference between infrastructure here and there is the NBN here in Australia. Render was founded effectively to streamline the workflow between design and delivery of these fibre networks and also wireless and 5G networks. We spent the first 5 years working here in Australia diligently with the NBN and some of the leading delivery partners here, and our story is really one of Australian-born innovation that's now focused on the United States and helping them, as you very eloquently phrase it, bridge the rural divide, which is something that is now one of the last remaining bipartisan issues in the United States. It's internet and connectivity infrastructure to connect rural communities, just like those in the urban areas have enjoyed for some years.
How have you gone managing this US expansion this year? How have you managed to oversee that during COVID? Are you based here in Australia still?
I was based in California for the first couple of weeks, before things got really serious, and then I ran the gauntlet back to Melbourne. So I'm born and raised in Melbourne and living here in East Melbourne now with my family. How have we gone in managing that? Without an ability to travel to the US, a couple of weeks per month like I have for the last couple of years, the focus has been bringing on a very senior and experienced executive team in the United States to lead that charge for us from a market development perspective over there. And then we are a homegrown Australian business, so we pride ourselves on having Australian-based talent from a product and an engineering perspective. We've got an office that we don't use at the moment, like many other people in Victoria, in Glen Iris. And so we've got a team here, a fantastic delivery and market development team in the US, with folks over there that have got backgrounds from AT&T and a lot of the leading tier one general contractors, really focusing on taking our construction platform to market and scaling through the US.
The picture you paint is of massive opportunity in the US. So it seems like everything we've learnt over the last several years, despite the arguments about mediums and all of that sort of stuff, is now being rolled out in the US, and all of that wisdom and learning has now come to pass in the US.
All of us at Render are incredibly fortunate, by way of Dan Fleming, who's one of our founders and an ex-head of construction at the NBN in the early years. His learnings and his perspectives around being able to embrace technology and simply perform large-scale network telecommunications infrastructure rollouts more efficiently with technology. So that vision, was born here in Australia, and we're absolutely excited and humbled by the opportunity we have in the US at Render. We've been embraced by the industry over there. We've now got projects that are live across eight US states and counting. And there's an enormous amount of government stimulus going into the market in the United States. And what's really exciting for us at Render is that the US is absolutely a must-win market for us. But global fibre penetration in places like Germany and all across Europe is low single digits. And fibre infrastructure, which has absolutely been highlighted through this pandemic, is critical to economic development, not just now but into the future, and the delivery of those essential services. So I think the global opportunity in that medium-term horizon is phenomenal for us.
So In terms of what you're doing, when you look at what some of the tech giants are doing in terms of rolling out satellites and the plan to blanket the world with satellite fast speed internet, where does that fit into the mix for Render, and is it a threat or is it an opportunity for you guys?
Look, we like to look at it as an opportunity. Like, certainly there's some near-term threats, by way of Starlink and their ambitions to put constellations all across the sky and inhibit that asset that we all enjoy for our industry. However, we see it as a real opportunity. I think Starlink and similar type operators can really plug a hole for that 0 to 150 megabits per second connectivity for really basic services. But if we think about fibre infrastructure, we're not deploying fibre infrastructure for today and tomorrow. We're really deploying it and future-proofing communications infrastructure for the medium and the long term. And synchronous services are really, fibre is the future in that sense. If we think about another threat that's often thrown around is 5G. Unfortunately, the Render digital network construction platform delivers 5G and wireless infrastructure just like it does wireline and fibre infrastructure. But if we think about 5G, the amount of fibre optic cable that's needed to support 1, 2, 3 gig connections, whether they're wireless or fixed, is really significant. So I think Starlink, to answer your question, will play an important role over these next couple of years, but really the medium to long term, the business case for fibre sounds both here in Australia and certainly in the US.
Sam, as you mentioned earlier, you moved back from the US to Melbourne early on in the pandemic and have been working from home. How do you rate the NBN's performance this year? Give us your verdict.
Look, for me personally, I'm very thankful that I've got an internet connection because it's literally the lifeblood for my family. I think there's lots of opinions thrown around about the NBN, but we're very lucky that we had it. It was an idea that it was ahead of its time. There's various opinions on the way that it's been executed and the types of technology, but you know what? We've got a piece of infrastructure in this country that has served us well through the COVID-19 pandemic, and really lays a backbone that we can build on. If we think about what's happening with 5G and the ability for the NBN to backbone that rollout, I mean, there's ROI there, and it's difficult to say what the future will hold for the NBN, but we're certainly, I personally think that it's on the whole a very good thing.
And before we let you go, when you look at the potential for Render around the world, not just in the US, will it make the NBN look like petty cash? Is this sort of hundreds of billions of dollars for you guys in the long run?
Look, the market size in the US, just this calendar year, there will be about 30 billion US in government investment poured into fibre to the home and similar networks in the US, plus private investment takes that over to well over $60 billion a year flowing in just to the US market. The NBN, I think it was great that Australia got started early because these technologies don't get any cheaper to roll out over time. So it's certainly not chump change. It's been a massive investment, and it's an asset that will pay off dividends for many years to come.
Sam, thanks for joining us today. All the best with Render, especially in the US, and when you take on the EU, good luck with that as well.
Thanks so much for your time.